Good evening, folks. It's Carl on this side of the mic. ENTP7312, Entrepreneurship 3B. This is the national support session for assignment 2. In other words, this is where I go through the second assignment, give you a sense of what is expected, what do you do, how do you do it, so on and such forth. You should be able to, on the screen, see my first slide. It has my name, it has my email address on it. Please feel free to email me if you've got any questions. Please just remember to, in the subject line of the email, put ENTP7312W or Entrepreneurship 3B or something like that, just so that I can identify which class you're from. And because sometimes questions don't make it clear. If I get a question, so I need help with the assignment, I'm not sure about how many pages, then I don't know which assignment it is because I've got several classes that I'm involved with. Again, and my first typing error for the evening is coming up. This is, of course, assignment 2. Assignment 1 was 30%. Assignment 2 is 25%. The exam, so that's 30% for assignment 1. Assignment 2 is 25, and I think the exam's 35. Due 12th October. So if you look at the calendar, you have 1 week, about 2 weeks left to do this assignment in. That's why I have called for this session tonight. I know it follows very closely on the session that you had, or very closely on your previous hand-in. Unfortunately, they are very close together. And I wanted to get this session over and done with, because when we start looking at the assignment, and I'm assuming not many of you have started to look at it yet, you'll see there's quite a bit of work. This covers Learning Unit 3 and 4. Check out my recordings. Check out the notes I've put up. I have put notes under more resources. I've put up some recordings for you as well, covering, I think it's Learning Unit 4. Because it just didn't work out for us to be able to do a class on that. Or was that the one that I had to cancel because of load shedding? I can't remember. Any case, and 2,000, 2,500 words, guys, that's very tight. If you see what you have to do, you'll find it's going to be a little bit tight. Try to work it in there. I'd like to see 10 sources. I feel at this level, your third year level, some of you might be preparing for honors. You need to have a good couple of sources when you're writing. This assignment builds on the previous one. You would remember that you, in the previous assignment, you had to come up with an idea for a blue sky venture that was linked to those Millennium Development Goals. And this is further linked to that. Now, the problem that I'm sitting with is I must try to get you feedback before you hand in the second assignment. I can't guarantee that. It's an extremely large amount of work to go through those assignments. I'm going to try to be finished by the weekend before it's due. You can't wait until then. You would have to carry on and develop your project before that weekend. So you're going to have to work on it and back yourself and trust that what you've done is correct. I have found that at the third year level, students typically are okay. You guys know you've been around the block, so you sort of should be fine. What do you need to do? So I'm going to run through the questions so that you've got a sense of questions. Then I'm going to say, how do you put the whole thing together? My advice to you in terms of the assignment is to start writing the questions, start doing the work. Don't worry about the niceties of an introduction and so on. Do that at the end. It's something that you can do almost last minute. I don't advise you to do that. You should try to be finished a day or two before the time, so you've got time to work through your assignment again. But let's get down straight into the nitty-gritty, what you need to do. So question 1 requires you, and I'm sorry, I'm just reaching out to grab the question. It basically requires you to run an experiment to test the value of your blue sky entrepreneurial venture by applying the scientific method. And then it tells you to refer to section 7.4 of the prescribed textbook. So a couple of things that you need to understand about the scientific method. We're talking about, and I'm going to use language here that I'm assuming as a third-year student. Many of you have done research or are busy with the research module, so you should understand this terminology. We're talking about positivism here. We are talking about quantitative research because the scientific method talks about quantitative. And to translate that into English for you, it simply means that you'll be collecting data in the form of numbers. When you are busy collecting the data, because you basically got to do a little research study, the questions that you'll ask would be not questions, how do you feel, and then recording the feelings of the people. It will rather record them in terms of a specific a number. So if you go Google Likert scales, you'll have a sense of what we're talking about. My pronunciation is Likert, some say Likert scales. So you would have to look at how do people express their feelings or the idea or the sense of in numbers. So you'll be collecting numbers. So the scientific method, as it's put out in your textbook, basically speaks about ask lots of questions, and it's to get you to start asking questions about the topic until you've got a very specific question, which is then basically your research question. Then you do carry out your background research. You can think of this as a lit review. So you'd have to be able to give me a couple of bits of literature there to say, what does the current body of knowledge tell us about your specific subject or your topic? And this is because when entrepreneurs start to look at something, they become an expert in that field. They study that field so that they understand that market, they understand how it works, they understand what are the powers that drive the market, they understand who the competitors are, they understand what defines a quality product in that market. So that's your lit review. Then you'll develop a hypothesis. Your hypothesis would then be the thing that you're going to test. You test that hypothesis by running an experiment, and you basically have two choices here. In terms of running the experiment, you can either do questionnaires or interviews. Because we are doing positivist research, and because it's quantitative in nature, my best bet for you would be to do some questionnaires. You then need to analyze the data and then assess the results. So that's the process that you're going to follow. The question remains, what do you need to do? So let's look a little bit at what is expected of you. So the first thing you need to do is you create a hypothesis. You must have a hypothesis. Don't go to a hypothesis with a sub-hypothesis, a null and an alternative. It's not required here. Go for a hypothesis that you're going to try to prove as true, or you're going to try to prove as false. In this research, what is expected here, I would go for a single hypothesis that I'm going to try to prove that it's true. As I said, there's numerous ways in which you can collect data. As a matter of fact, strictly speaking, in the scientific process, you don't even have to collect data. There are other ways of doing experiments. There are desktop studies, etc. I would not advise any of those. Go collect data. They are very very straightforward within the assignment saying you should not collect more than 10 participants. I would go for a minimum of 5 participants, and I would try to ask no more than about 6 or 7 questions max. Then you need to take the results that you're going to get, the numbers that you're going to get. An easy way is to do a little, to ask a couple of family members, friends, whoever to complete this for you. Do it in a Google form, get them to complete it. Now you've got a Google, then Google Forms will pump it into an Excel spreadsheet. Once you're in the Excel spreadsheet, it's easy to draw a couple of graphs from there, or just the tables. Graphs are more impressive. Then tell me what each one of the results say. So you're going to have a question, and you're going to have 5 or 6 people respond to it. You can make a little graph. If you do a like-it scale on a question, so how likely are you to buy bottled water? If your product is a bottled water product, for example, because your NDG was the one around safe drinking water. A 5-point like-it scale, and then you can say, you present it in a graph, and you can say, well, most people have said they're highly likely, or there's even spread between unlikely, likely, or highly likely. If you've only got 3 on your like-it scale, like-it scales, we always try to do an odd number of choices. But it's up to you to put that together. So then you take each one of the questions that you've asked, you do an analysis on that question, tell me what the results say. You take all the results that you have for the different questions, and you make a conclusion on your hypothesis to say, my hypothesis that people would like another drinking water because this drinking water is made of reclaimed rain that comes off the roof of a very special building, or whatever the case may be. The hypothesis has been proven true, and therefore, what are the next steps for your business based on your results? The next steps are then to go ahead and roll out the business and start to do the actual business. The hypothesis is proven false. Therefore, we need to go back to the drawing board and re-look at whether we still want to launch this business. And in terms of that, we will then have to redo the research at a later stage, and therefore we are not going to do the business at this stage. Both of those are valid answers. You won't get a better or a worse point for proving your hypothesis true. The only thing I want to see here is that you've gone through the process of scientific research, you've followed the 6 steps, and you've shown that you can do this. Yeah, I want to see that you've done the work. So the key thing here is not the results that you're going to achieve. I want to see that you've done everything. Okay, I'm going to move on to question 2. Question 2 reads that you need to, oh, sorry, that's question 1. Compile a proposal for only using crowdfunding and or bootstrapping resources to fund your blue sky entrepreneurial venture. So this is a 40 mark. The previous one, by the way, was also a 40 mark question. So what do we have to do? Firstly, how will you crowdfund or bootstrap a venture? They talk about and or bootstrap. I would suggest you choose either crowdfund or bootstrap. So let's remember what we're talking about here. Crowdfunding is where you go onto one of these apps where you ask people to give you money to get the business off the ground. And typically there's some kind of reward, and typically there's different scales of reward. So if you go 100 Rand, I'll publish your name on the website. If you give me 400 Rand, I'll publish your name on the website and I'll send you a t-shirt. If you give me 600 Rand, I'll publish your name on the website, give you a t-shirt and send you one of the products, etc., etc., etc. So that's crowdfunding. Bootstrapping is where you use the principles of bootstrapping. And if you check the notes, there are 8 or 10 principles of bootstrapping. And by doing things in a cheaper or a very low cost way, you're saving money and you don't need as much money to start the business. Choose one of the two. Briefly describe, I would start off by briefly describing what's the difference between the two, and then saying I choose this one, and these are the reasons why I've decided on this one, using the theory to align it. You would have to then also make some kind of an assumption of how much money you will need, and why you need that money, and how is that money broken down. And then how long will it take the money to get, how long will it take the money or to get the product out the door? You need to explain your timelines for your funding proposal, how you're going to go about, or not, or how, why you going, sorry, I'm reading something and talking at the same time. I should only do one thing, I'm a man. You firstly need to describe how long will it take you to get the money, and then how long will it take to build the product and get the product out the door. You will see if you look at the question 2 if you've got the assignment open in front of you, point 4 there justify your choice of funding strategy. And that is what I've already said on the third bullet that I've spoken about here, motivate using theory to align. So I have covered everything. I've covered slightly different because it makes more logical sense to me to do it that way. So basically, choose crowdfunding or bootstrapping. Tell me what the difference is between the two by giving me some theory there. Decide which one you're going to use. Tell me why. Motivate your choice. Why is it in alignment with your product? Determine the amount of money that you'll need. So you'll have to do a little budget to explain how much money you're going to need to get this project up and running. And then tell us how long it's going to take to get the money or the product out the door, and why, because you should be showing a budget that can be justified. Lastly, they've got an interesting 10-mark question, and I know for me this would be very difficult, and this is a self-reflection question, and they ask you to reflect on what they call declare any or all limitations and disadvantages experienced during the completion of the report. In other words, how difficult was this for you? And include both the first and the second assignment in this. Talk briefly what challenges did you experience? And they want you to give your challenges, not overall challenges. And this is not a airy-fairy pie in the sky thing. This is the challenges that you as an individual experienced in completing these two assignments, not the things that you think the business will compare or struggle with, or the product will struggle. What did you struggle? What did you find difficult this? And how did this influence your objectivity and your validity in terms of the product that you developed? How would you approach this differently if you were required to do this again? In other words, they're trying to figure out here, what did you learn out of this process? And if you're ever going to launch a product for yourself, and I know one or two of you are actually probably looking at a product that you want to launch in your own business. And then were there any ethical considerations that stood out for you? Guys, I'm going to ask you in this section to please answer this as honestly and as personally as possible. When I mark this, I need to see that reflection, and I don't want you to do a pie in the sky. I want you to honestly have a look at you, yourself, and the experience that you had in developing these assignments. Okay, so I said to you right at the beginning, write the thing. These are the 3 questions that you need to answer. Now we need to do this to make this into a nice looking assignment, because there are some marks, I think about 10%, that are up for grabs. So do a cover page with your name, the subject, the title of the project, in other words, the thing that you're going to do, a handy place here to bang in that logo and stuff that we designed, put it in here. Then do an introduction of the project. What is it? What is it about? Then answer the 3 questions. Give them headings if you want to that are different, but you can just heading them Q1, Q2, question 1, question 2, question 3. come to a conclusion about the product and about where you're at. Give me your list of references and any appendices that you feel are really, really necessary. I can't think of any offhand that I really think is necessary, but if you come up with some, go for it. And then lastly, remember your references. They need to be academic in nature, correctly indexed reference, and correct in the reference list. Everything that's indexed needs to be in the reference list. Everything in the reference list needs to be indexed. All your references in your index must look the same. Your layout must be the same. And your reference list at the end, all the references must look the same. Your layout needs to be the same. Folks, that's it. I don't think this is a rocket science assignment. I do think with the research that you've got to do, it's going to take you a while. And that's why I would advise you to get onto this as soon as possible. Try to, probably because you're going to use family and friends, it might be easiest to collect data this weekend. So if you can this coming weekend collect your data, get those 5, 7 people, but not more than 10. Ask them those to complete your 7 or 8 questions that you have, and then you have your data so you can start writing. Okay, guys, any questions? Anybody want to ask me anything? There's my email address again. You're welcome to email me. Any questions? Okay, cool. That's it. Thank you. Pleasure. And we'll chat soon again. I think there's one more session that I'm going to do. One more. Well, there's classes, and then I'll do another one of these type of sessions when we get closer to the exam to chat about that. Guys, enjoy this. Work hard on this assignment. Very late in the day for you. We're almost there. It's the last hurdles that we've got to cross so that you can complete your qualification. Thanks, guys. Have a good evening. Cheers.